Your social media highlights can make the news. When you post your highlights from your favorite high school player, when your team's out there doing their thing. Hashtag HYFN TV and your highlight may be used on the next newscast. You get the photo cred right here on the morning news where everyone can follow you too. So every time you post a highlight on social media, remember to hashtag your highlights. HYF.
Are your sports and events currently being streamed by a quality network hosted in one place? Are your games, concerts, plays, recitals, special events, are they being hosted on the #1 streaming network in Arizona? They can. HYFN TV is free to the viewer with the ability to raise money for your club or your school via your stream. HYFN TV has individual streaming packages built with the ability for booster clubs to sell advertising on their streams to raise money for their program. Stream on the HYFN TV network. Go to hyfntv.com to
Welcome back to the update. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Jai. Hope you got your bootstraps tied tight because we have a ton of facts and info to catch up on with the elections that just took place earlier this week. This is the update.
Welcome, friends. It is the end of the week here and we are ready. But first, let's start off with some elections for the Senate races that took place around the U.S. That was quite the election, and if you have any questions or comments, make sure you email us at hyfntv@gmail.com. So, where do we stand as a nation after the midterms? To begin with, when Election Day began, as reported on AZ Central, there were 35 seats up for election in the Senate. Now, of those, 21 belonged to Republicans and 14 to Democrats. In order to gain control, the Republicans needed to gain 1 seat to win a majority, which is currently held by the Democrats with 48 senators, and includes 2 other independent senators who typically caucus or meet with Democrats, and with Vice President Kamala Harris's vote as the tie-breaking vote. Now you can believe there was intense anticipation waiting for the results, and shoot, some states are still too close to call, and another is holding a runoff in December. So let's break it down. First, why are they called key races anyway? What exactly does that mean? Well, they usually determine which party will control the Senate. The states of Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Wisconsin, Ohio, Nevada, and right here in Arizona all had eyes on them at one point or another during Election Day, as each of those elections brought both Democrats and Republicans that much closer to taking control of the House. These states were being watched because nobody could accurately predict how the citizens would vote. Would they turn red and vote Republican or blue and go Democrat? Well, as of yesterday, late last night, the Democrats held 48 seats in the Senate, while 40 belonged to the Republicans. Nevada and our beautiful state of Arizona are still too close to call and has everyone on the edge of their seats. So how did it turn out for each state? Let's go to Jai to check it out.
Thank you, Tiff. Now first, let's start off in the beautiful chocolate state of Pennsylvania. In a race that shocked many, Democrat John Fetterman bested Mehmet Oz, or Dr. Oz as he's often referred to. Fetterman inched out Oz, winning 47.2% to 46.8% for Dr. Oz. Now Fetterman has been the subject of controversy as he did have a stroke earlier in the year and now needs assistance. According to CNN, Fetterman's victory over Republican Mehmet Oz, the cardiothoracic surgeon turned TV doctor and former President Donald Trump's chosen candidate, flipped a seat the GOP had held for more than a decade and narrowed Republicans' path to reclaiming the Senate majority. Now moving on to Connecticut, Democrat and incumbent Richard Blumenthal took the lead and the race with 57.33% of the votes against challenger Leora Levy, who garnered the remaining 42.67% of votes. There was a big push to try and flip the state with former President Trump's endorsement. However, the state remained mostly Democratic. Moving over to New Hampshire. Now, they saw candidates Maggie Hassan, Democrat, run against opponent Don Bolduc, representing the Republican Party. Senator Hassan is running for re-election, and she is now looking to capitalize on earning that seat. Now let's move forward to Florida. Marco Rubio has won for the Republicans and defeated Val Demings. Did you know it's a historical fact the party the president represents typically loses seats in either the Senate or House during the midterms? Why is that, do you think? Well, it may possibly be because if the citizens of the United States perceive the president as performing poorly, they will show it by electing the opposite party during the midterms, smack dab in the middle of the president's term in office. And you have to figure, this may be opinion-based, but the president's job, the position of elected commander-in-chief, who then also has the Senate and House of Representatives to work with if we're talking about new laws, repealing laws, overseeing all the operations. Now, you've got to imagine all these different cooks in the kitchen, you're just bound to have some different opinions in there, right? And isn't that part of what this country's founded on anyways, being able to work cooperatively with all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different opinions, and then figuring out what's really in the best welfare of the people? Well, I just believe, hey, maybe at some point it might be something that we're considering, the setup of the government. But long story short, it's a hard job to do, and it's probably very understandable that people are going to be somewhat unhappy no matter who's in that job, probably. Now let's move on to Georgia. They have a runoff now scheduled for December because the race between Herschel Walker, who represents the Republican Party, and incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock went head-to-head in the Senate race. So far, neither candidate has met the threshold of 50% majority to win the vote. That means they will now have a runoff in December 6th to be specific. The law in Georgia used to be that if a runoff was necessary, the candidates would nearly have 2 months to prepare. Now, however, there are 4 weeks, so just about half, giving a much shorter time frame for voting and getting the word out again. According to WJBF, for the 2020 runoffs, there were 3 weeks of advance voting. That's not the case for the 2022 Senate runoff. Now, there will be early voting starting on November the 28th, and that will go for 1 week. So anyone out there, if that's a race you're following, get to the polls, fill out your ballots again. In 2020, there was time for new voters to register and still take part in the runoffs, but this time no new voters will be taking part, as the deadline to register to vote for a federal run is November 7th. So that's gone. Bye-bye. So it will be a race we'll continue to track and bring you the info as it comes in. Next up, in the great state of Wisconsin, in another Senate race there. It's so close it'll make you hold your breath. And we go to Wisconsin. Ron Johnson for the Republican Party led Mandela Barnes, who represents the Democratic Party, by just a couple percentage points. Now, though Barnes was a noble opponent and was the lieutenant governor, that's a position we just voted on here in Arizona, he wasn't able to edge out Johnson. Now, even Johnson was caught off guard by how close the race was. Johnson's platform proved to be stronger than that of Barnes when it came to the fight against crime, helping him win all of the votes. Moving to the Midwest, we have Ohio. Tiff,
Thank you, Jai. Yes, and this race is going to be a good one. It was against J.D. Vance, who represents the Republican Party. He pulled off the victory and ran his lap by defeating Democrat opponent Tim Ryan by a margin of 6.5 percentage points, which is quite a bit. Prior to Election Day, polls showed Vance ahead of Ryan by a couple of percentage points. I was just going to take it back really quick over to Pennsylvania because we are doing this real time as well, and these elections are changing non-stop. So going back to that, currently we have Fetterman in the lead with 50.9%, and Dr. Oz is right there behind him at 46%. Yesterday this was going back and forth quite a bit. We tried at midnight, but you know, those numbers are always changing. So continuing on, in Nevada, in a race that is still too close to call, we have that race heating up between Republican Adam Laxalt, who is toe-to-toe with Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto. As of almost midnight, data showed Laxalt was in the lead by just over 3 percentage points. So I'm going to check that right now. So we're doing this real time. Currently, we have Laxalt at 49% and Masto at 48%. So let's see, the process in Nevada is taking some time, but that is definitely not abnormal. And that's because the state doesn't release vote counts until all voters in line have been able to vote before they let the polls close. Also, Nevada has increased their absentee voting, so they send a ballot to every single registered voter no matter what. Now, their county election clerks will count mail ballots received until November 12th, as long as they were postmarked by Election Day. Now, officials do have until November 17th to finish the counting and submit a report to the Nevada Secretary of State's office, according to state law. Now, this definitely will be another race we will keep tracking closely. Next up, over in Colorado, the Democrats witnessed a massive victory when their party's candidate, Michael Bennet, beat out Republican Joe O'Dea by over 11 percentage points as of midnight. Bennet is the incumbent, and a win will mark his third term in Colorado's Senate. Excuse me. That was a sweet, short-to-the-point update. Moving on.
Thank you, Tiff. Moving on to Washington. Incumbent Patty Murray for the Democratic Party so far leads Republican challenger Tiffany Smiley. Is that you?
Hey, here I am.
Tiffany Smiley by 3 percentage points. You should probably be back out there making sure your votes are counted. Just kidding. Neither candidate has hit 50% at the time the report was written. However, according to our live results, Murray has won the race or is projected to win the race with 56.9% of the votes. And finally, bringing it back home here to our lovely Grand Canyon state of Arizona. Now, we don't know yet who's won yet, okay? This battlefield race has been a nail-biter, back and forth. Every time I check the website for the live results, it's like, 50.9, I think, is the highest I've seen for either candidate at this point. But as of midnight, the Associated Press did show Kelly with the lead over Masters. This race may not be called for some time, and, seriously, let's hope everything can just run smoothly. I think he did have maybe a 4 or 5% lead there, so that's good stuff. Congratulations there. Just kidding, but there already were issues with ballot machines running out of ink, so we'll see. We'll see when these results are finalized and we can actually bring that officially. But as Secretary of State goes, Katie Hobbs is the person in charge to make sure it all goes smoothly. Unfortunately, the Democrats in Arizona are running against a slate of candidates who truly believe the 2020 election was rigged or had fraud present. Well, what do you think? Have you done all your research on this topic of voter fraud? Email us, hashtag us, get us on your social medias. We love to check out the discussions that our viewers are having on these topics. And with the way that it works today, you never know who might jump on that conversation online. So let us know where you stand, hashtag HYFN TV, and all ages are welcome. Thank you for sticking with us this week. We've been covering, nonstop the elections. Next week we will give you many other additional updates on the races that haven't been called yet, updates on the ones that are, but stay tuned. Up next is our favorite history guy, Daniel. Don't even blink. That's how fast we're going.
Are your sports and events currently being streamed by a quality network hosted in one place? Are your games, concerts, plays, recitals, special events, are they being hosted on the #1 streaming network in Arizona? They can. HYFN TV is free to the viewer with the ability to raise money for your club or your school via your stream. HYFN TV has individual streaming packages built with the ability for booster clubs to sell advertising on their streams to raise money for their program. Stream on the HYFN TV network. Go to
Heading out on a Friday night, gonna hit the floor, gonna make it right, let's go, and light it up this way. 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, slide to your left, tip down your hat, drop it down, let's scream for the USA. Let me hear ya. Turn it up, break it down, put your feet down on the ground.
Come see us Saturday, November 12th at Mesa Riverview Park. It's all going to be a
Welcome back to the update here on the HYFN TV network, your next generation news, sports, and entertainment. Now, we need a break from all of that election news. So let's go to Daniel, who can lighten it up a little bit.
Thank you, Tiff. Feels good to be back talking about all the great things that happened on this November 11th day in history. Today, we were trying to highlight all the good things that happened. And we began in 1889. Washington was added as the 42nd state, and the rest of the country said, "Welcome to the crew." Washington state was considered a territory for 36 years until becoming part of the United States. A little more background about it. It was originally called the Washington Territory and was created in 1853 when Congress split what is now the state of Washington, northern Idaho, and western Montana off from the Oregon Territory, which had been created 5 years earlier in 1848. Now in 1918, boom, massive win, World War I ended, and it was known as Armistice Day. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, or does it? Get this, according to History.com, at the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month, the Great War ended. 11, 11, 11. Talk about lucky numbers. Winning all the way around. And did you know that World War I was known as the war to end all wars because of the destruction it caused? Clearly that wasn't the case, because we had World War II and World War III may be on the horizon, but hopefully not. Let's think positively on this one. But that's why it's important to look back at history. If everyone now could all gather together and rewatch the horrors of those past wars, maybe they change their current course. There's always hope. Moving on to this next stellar moment, in 1963, Gordie Howe tied Rocket Richards' lifetime 544 goal record in hockey. Howe was a Canadian professional ice hockey player who led the Detroit Red Wings to 4 Stanley Cup championships and to 7 consecutive first-place regular season finishes. That's impressive. Talk about being great. Not to mention, he played a record 1,767 NHL games throughout his career. That's a durable man right there. During which he earned the nickname Mr. Hockey, and rightfully so. And he got a style of play that was named after him called the Gordie Howe Hat Trick, which included a goal, an assist, and a fight within a single play. That's a tough dude right there, just throwing punches. Adding to his accolades, he was a 6-time winner of both the Hart Memorial Trophy for the most valuable player and the Art Ross Trophy as top point scorer. So, no big deal, right? Just when you thought he was out after leaving the NHL, nah. He transfers to the World Hockey Association where he scored 100 points in that first season and led the Arrows to back-to-back WHA titles. Kind of reminds me of Tom Brady. He leads the Patriots to a bunch of Super Bowls, wins, goes to Tampa Bay, and boom, same thing. Leads them to the Super Bowl and wins. This is what the GOATs do, man. They just win. Next up, in a completely different topic, in 1975, Portugal granted Angola independence. Let's cheer for that, for both countries. Did you know that although the United States acknowledged the independence of Angola, the U.S. government, like Portugal itself, did not recognize the government of Angola declared by the MPLA. The United States continued to withhold recognition of a government of Angola because of continuing concerns about the presence of Cuban combat troops in Angola and their involvement in regional conflicts. After years of civil war, Angola held its first multi-party elections in 1992. The elected government agreed to sign a peace agreement with UNITA, the party that had been in power prior to the election. In response, U.S. President Bill Clinton formally recognized the new government of Angola on May 19, 1993, using his announcement to urge UNITA to accept a negotiated settlement. Thank you, Office of the Historian of the Department of State, for that info. Next up, we enter the world of art. In 1987, Van Gogh's Irises sold for a record $53.6 million. And that was back then. In today's numbers, that same painting would cost over $140 million. Holy smokes. So winner on that return on investment. According to sources, Van Gogh's images often reflected personal symbolism, experiences, and emotions. Did you know he also suffered from severe depression and episodes of acute psychological distress? It's amazing and beautiful that despite his inner turmoil, he expressed a desire to communicate joy and comfort through his art. And boy, did he achieve it. We'll do a segment about him on another one of our shows. His story is one to learn about for sure. His painting Irises, which depicts purple flowers, is iconic. And at a Sotheby's auction, where the starting bid was $15 million, his Irises artwork sold for $49 million, plus a 10% commission to the Getty Museum. He broke the prior record, which was held by himself. He held that record, so he bested himself. He's just a winner all around. A few months prior, another one of Van Gogh's paintings sold for almost $40 million, which was triple the amount of any other artist sold for at an auction. Now in 1994, with some more art, Da Vinci's Codex sells for, not some more art, that's a book actually. Codex sells for $30,800,000 and bought by none other than Bill Gates at Christie's auction house. The Codex Leicester, formerly known as the Codex Hammer, is a collection of scientific writings by Leonardo da Vinci. An interesting fact, the Codex currently holds the record for the 5th highest sale price of any book. According to HammeredCodex.com, unlike the other manuscripts where the subject changes on each page according to Leonardo's mood or his innumerable interests, this codex is almost totally dedicated to an in-depth study of a sole theme, the study of water. Currents, whirlpools, waves, heads, canals, banks, locks, dams, tunnels, projects for docks, for land reclamation, lists of machines for making use of the energy supplied by water, and projects for the use of water for military purposes. That's so many things. Who knew that water could be so interesting? It's way more interesting than just drinking it, right? Those topics take up most of the illustrations, accompanied by theories propelling that great leap forward which science was to make from the Renaissance and on. Mind-blowing, right? Do you ever stop and think about how amazing people were back in the day? Crazy what they were accomplishing. Now moving on, in 2001, in the Federation Cup for women's tennis, I might butcher this name, but Kim Clijsters beat her opponent to bring Belgium their first title win. According to the sources at Wikipedia, coming from a country with limited success in men's or women's tennis, Clijsters became the first Belgian player to attain the #1 ranking. Together with her teammate, she established Belgium as a leading force in women's tennis, and the two of them led their country to their first Fed Cup crown in 2001, and were at the top 2 players in the world in the late 2003. Individually, she won 41 singles titles and 11 doubles titles on the Women's Tennis Association Tour. She was a 3-time winner of the WTA Tour Championships as well. Between singles and doubles, she has been a champion at all 4 Grand Slam tournaments, winning the US Open and the Australian Open in singles, and Wimbledon and the French Open in doubles, partnering with Ai Sugiyama. That was a tough name, but that sounded right guys? Her success at the majors was highlighted by winning 3 consecutive appearances at the US Open. Man, I love talking about winning. We had a lot of winning on this one. Honestly, if you look around, there's wins all day, every day, even if they're small wins. For instance, if you make your bed in the morning, it's a win, and it should be your first win of the day. Hence why you should do it. When you start realizing how many wins you actually have in a day, it might shift the way you view things. Think positively. Hope you all had a great and educational time on this day in history. When we come back, we're talking about that state with all the beautiful scenic views. That's right, Arizona. Don't you think about going anywhere?
Country music fans, you don't want to miss the live country lineup coming in town this Veterans Day weekend. Ashley Wineland, Bobby Joe Bell,
3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Slide to your left, tip down your hat, drop it down. Raise some hands for ASD. Put your feet
Hillbilly
down on the
Deluxe.
ground. It's time to rock it this way. Come on.
Wake at Midnight, and special guest band opening the show, Christopher Shane.
All flashing scars, open, let 'em breathe.
This festival will be supporting the Foundation Raise Your Hands, Inc. and Arizona Department of Veterans Services. Saturday, November 12th, Veterans Day weekend at Riverview Park in Mesa. Music, large wood dance floor, Arizona's best food trucks, unique shopping, and every kind of drink in a can. Your first drink is on us with the purchase of a ticket, and 2 drinks if you're a veteran. Leave the kids at home. This is a 21 and over event. Get your tickets now on sale, or they'll be $30 at the door. You can get your tickets at Limelightentertainment.com. Limelightentertainment.com.
Your social media highlights can make the news. When you post your highlights from your favorite high school player, when your team's out there doing their thing. Hashtag HYFN TV, and your highlight may be used on the next newscast. You get the photo cred right here on the morning news, where everyone can follow you too. So every time you post a highlight on social media, remember to hashtag your highlights, HYFN.
Welcome back, guys. It's the end of midterm election week, and it's Arizona State News time. So here on the update, as you know, we like to keep you in the know with what's happening right here in our backyard. Here on the update at HYFN TV, we make it our mission to break down the news in Arizona in the most relevant and meaningful way for you, our viewers. That means unbiased, down the middle. That's the only way the news should be, right? So let's get right into these election updates. As far as tallying the votes go, fellow Arizonans, we turned out on Tuesday. Drastically larger numbers of voters hit the polls on Tuesday to vote in what many are calling a pivotal election in determining the underlying beliefs of those running local, state, and federal government. We're all so looking forward to seeing who pulls it off And who gets to go shopping for new office decor? Gotta love shopping for office decor. So, who is our new governor? Well, the best answer at this time is that the votes are still being counted. According to elections.maricopa.gov, currently with 1.213 million votes or ballots cast, they have Katie Hobbs in the lead currently at 52% and Carrie Lake at 48%. But there are still over 300,000 votes left to count just in Maricopa County, most of those being late earlies, which are drop-off ballots that are dropped off on election day itself. That's what I did. In addition, there are roughly still some 12 or 13,000 ballots left to count otherwise, because get this, they were set aside due to reported vote tabulator issues you may have heard about. And about another maybe 6,000 or so provisional ballots still left to count that were also received on election day. These are votes cast by folks without a usable form of identification at the polls, or whose records showed they had already voted by mail-in ballot. So how about the rest of Arizona? Well, there are still a couple 100,000 more ballots estimated left to count. Here's an interesting fact. Most of them outside Maricopa County are from Pima County, which includes Tucson, among other parts of southern Arizona. Now, Channel 4 in Tucson reports that as of 3 a.m. Wednesday, Pima County had counted 95% of the votes. Election officials have advised that all ballots that have irregularities and inconsistencies will need to be reviewed, and their respective voters' selections must be clear before a final count can be issued. Do we have an ETA on that? Well, Pima County Communications Director Mark Evans gave a quote stating, "We will keep counting through the weekend and until we are done counting." Well, that seems simple enough. Maricopa County voting officials have been quoted that they're vowing to hand count every ballot after the printing malfunction that happened in reportedly about a quarter of the polling locations across Arizona. Now, obviously, that would slow down the process, as only a portion of as many voters could vote at the same time. But let's look at a few projections, also according to elections.maricopa.gov. The propositions that we were all voting on here in Arizona. Let's go ahead and run through some of those. I think all of the state senator discussions in all the different districts, a lot of that people are going to be looking for in the next coming weeks. However, propositions that we have currently got to count, bear with me, I'm just simply scrolling here. So we have Proposition 128 currently looking like 63% have voted no. Proposition 129, about 54% have voted no thus far. 130 looks like 64% have locked that in for a yes. Prop 131, 56% for the go. Prop 132, that's about 50-50 currently. 209, 71% have said yes. 211 looks like we're at about 72% for the yes. We're going to put all these on a spreadsheet for you guys a little bit later on a graphic for easy reference. But 308, we've got yes on 53. 309 looks like 52%. 310, 52% have no. So that wraps up the propositions. Now, let's go to Tiff. She's actually going to go back over this and group them together and remind us of what each proposition actually was proposing. So, let's go to Tiff.
Yes, that is right, Jai. We have the latest from the Associated Press. And remember, these are projections based on about 70% of the votes being counted so far. They do not guarantee a final result, as we will wait for the final count. So let's start with the most likely yeses. So far it looks like Props 129, 130, 131, 132, 209, 211, and 308 will probably pass. Prop 129 makes it so proposition names must be on one line and basically describe the measure in that one-line subject. 130 changed and in most cases lowered or exempts the property taxes for most. Now for Prop 131, it created the office of the Lieutenant Governor, and that one it should most likely will be passed. And 132, at just over 50% of the majority, means that a 60% approval to pass legislation must be used. Prop 209 at 72% looks like a laydown victory, which is going to drop the maximum interest rate on medical debt to 3%, which it was at 10%. So that's going to drastically decrease the assets that can be seized for unpaid medical debt. Now, many folks probably are happy about 211. That prop introduced more stringent reporting requirements for those campaigning for public office. So that will definitely be a change here in Arizona. Hopefully that's effective in bringing more transparency, a key strategy to these days. And Prop 308 at just over 50% for yes as well, looking like it'll pass, giving any student access to in-state tuition and financial aid, as long as they've been a resident and achieved the minimum education standards to be accepted into colleges and universities. Now how about the no's, at least so far? For Prop 128, it looks like it's going to be a no-go so far. That would have given Arizona lawmakers the right to make amendments or changes and or divert money from any law found to contain illegal elements or aspects that go against the rights we've already had and the ones we thought the new proposition included. Now Prop 309 is just ever so slightly behind. That would have added several voter requirements, especially regarding notating identifying document information on mail-in ballots to ensure that the final tally only includes results from intended ballots. Also, Prop 310 trailing again just a tad bit behind. That's the one that would have imposed a sales tax to support the fire districts. Now that's the lowdown on the propositions, and we see the final certified results hopefully soon. We're guessing that'll be on Monday. But what about the top offices in Arizona government? If you've been watching the update lately or have seen the news at all these last couple of months, you know we mean the races for governor and senators. Let's see what the Associated Press projects. Again, this is projected with 70% or so of the votes being counted as of the last update. They say in the Senate race that Democrat Mark Kelly leads Republican Blake Masters, which is true at the moment, at about 51% to roughly 46% for Masters. And in the gubernatorial race, will it be Democrat pro-choice Katie Hobbs or Republican pro-life Carrie Lake? The projections have Katie Hobbs just ever so slightly out in front of Carrie Lake, but the race is way too close to call, and we will just all have to wait for that final certification. Now that was a lot, but we are grateful to be able to arm you with what you need to develop educated opinions and make informed choices. That way the world isn't so scary and we can understand a little more of how to thrive in our journeys. That's why we are your next generation news leaders, reporting down the middle, just the facts, the way news should be. We'll see you all right after the break.
Are your sports and events currently being streamed by a quality network hosted in one place? Are your games, concerts, plays, recitals, special events, are they being hosted on the #1 streaming network in Arizona? They can. HYFN TV is free to the viewer with the ability to raise money for your club or your school via your stream. HYFN TV has individual streaming packages built with the ability for booster clubs to sell advertising on their streams to raise money for their program. Stream on the HYFN TV network. Go to HYFNTV.com to find out how you can.
Welcome back to the update here on the HYFN TV network. Now this is the Arizona State News. Be sure to head over to our Roku channel, that's HYFN TV, or the website, that's HYFNTV.com. Check out all the content we've got for you on demand. Now let's go to Tiff, who's got us on what kind of weather we can expect this week, and then Of course, since Daniel joins us from the Varsity Squad show, he's got the updates on all of our sports teams too. Tiff?
Yes, thank you, Jai. Man, you guys really made it rain with all those AZ election updates. Not for real, obviously, but we might get some rain today here in the valley thanks to weather.com for the forecast. Looks like we'll have a high around 70 degrees and a low around 45 degrees. Humidity in the mid-20s, giving us that chance of showers. And we will definitely need the rain, so maybe take that next commercial break and let the weather gods know. Just kidding. But looking ahead into the weekend, we should stay between the upper 60s into the mid-70s for the highs, and it looks pretty clear. And lows will be in the mid-40s, also known to Arizonans as time to bundle up, and that is no joke. We don't anticipate much of a change heading into next week. We should keep enjoying temperatures around the mid-60s, lows in the mid-40s. We get 2 seasons here in Arizona, summer and holiday season. So move to the other side of the closet and knock that dust off the winter clothes, Arizona, because you just might need a jacket this weekend. Now let's see what's happening with our Arizona sports teams. Daniel?
Alright, so Arizona State University is currently holding a 3-6 record. Oof. And they get ready to visit the 5-4 Washington State Cougars this weekend. Now, even though ASU has historically had the Cougars number, winning 15 of their 24 meetings, FanDuel has the Cougars by 8.5. And the Cougars, well, they're especially interested in winning this game because, meanwhile, Arizona State could still have a chance of making the playoffs with a hot streak. Washington State just broke their 3-game losing streak last weekend by digging those Cougar claws in and demolishing Stanford 52-14. That's a blowout, holy smokes. And that was on the road, so super impressive, no doubt. A dub for Washington State would make them bowl eligible, so huge implications for the season going into this matchup. ASU is coming off a 50-36 loss at 9th ranked UCLA. So hopefully this is the close, entertaining game we're all hoping for. There's not much better than seeing what happens when tensions are high and scouts are probably in the house and fans are going crazy. Let's watch for ASU quarterback Trenton Bourguet. In that last game at UCLA, ASU might have lost, but Bourguet went 38 of 49 for 349 yards. That's huge. The Bruins quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, had 169 passing yards for 2 scores, but he also had 120 rushing yards for 2 more scores. So what does this mean? Well, ASU has got an awesome quarterback, so offense should be fine. But the squad is going to have to find a way for the secondary to stop the run and short passes, because with UCLA having a scrambling QB who also had a solid running back and wide receiver options, the Sun Devils defense was lost and points were given up. So we'll see if ASU figures out how to stop the run and 3rd down conversion attempts on defense, and how the rest of their season will pan out. Now moving on to the Phoenix Suns. Our boys took on the Minnesota Timberwolves on Thursday, and they got the W, 129-117. Forward Mikal Bridges had 31 points and 9 rebounds, almost getting a double-double. Also 5 assists. Wow, that's amazing. Devin Booker did his thing, of course, with 32 points, 4 rebounds, and 10 assists. Cameron Payne also had 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists as well. It's real nice when a few of the guys have solid all-around games and the team gets a huge dub, especially when there's a few injuries as well. Great job to the Valley boys. The Suns are sitting in 2nd in the West now. It's been a solid start to the season. 10 games in, looking forward to another incredible year. And what's more, the team is also winning fans off the court. Now with their new jerseys, this next Sun story coming from ArizonaSports.com, the Suns unveiled the 2022 and 2023 season City Edition jersey, and it honors the 22 indigenous communities. That's wonderful stuff right there. Now, the team will wear the jersey for 10 home games and 7 more on the road in cities with a larger indigenous population. The base color is turquoise. It's a beautiful turquoise, and if you didn't know, turquoise represents the protection stone. Gotta love that. Red is a major contributor and is symbolic of the land and soil these communities took care of, and that took care of them as well. A belt design inspired by Native American sashes and dress, and the letters have a black outline with yellow, red, white, and turquoise in the center, and elemental colors in the medicine wheel. Now, running down the sides of the two-piece uniform, there are translations for the word sun from all 22 tribes, and a band near the bottom displays 22 arrows, one for each of the tribal nations. Gotta love the suns. That's just pure class right there. But it's a way to pay tribute to the tribal nations. I don't think I've ever heard of a pro sports team doing a dedication like this to the tribes, especially with their jerseys. Inclusions and paying respect and tribute, and taking an action that could spark infinitely more fruitful relationships between the tribes and the rest of the Arizona community. It's amazing. What do you think should be the next move to improve relations with tribal communities? Let us know your thoughts. You can use hashtag HYFN TV. We hope to get lots of responses, and maybe we could talk about them on here on air. Now, when do we get to see Cam Johnson back in action? Sources say that on Thursday, Cam Johnson underwent surgery to remove part of the meniscus in his right knee. Oof, that's a tough injury. ESPN believes that means a 1 to 2 month recovery. Now, Cam is a tough dude. Back in 2017, when he was playing at MJ's alma mater, North Carolina, he had the same operation in his left knee. And fittingly, his heels hit the tar again in just 5 weeks. Just 5 short weeks. As for the rest of the squad, well, Jay Crowder is out because he wants to trade, so you can't count on him, unfortunately. And Chris Paul is out day to day. But the Suns are still absolutely crushing it. There's so much talent, so a few guys step up and the squad keeps racking in the W's. Now, how are those Coyotes doing? You know, hockey, that sport they play in places that actually have ice. Just playing. It's pretty cool that we have a hockey team here, despite it being the desert where ice will not survive. Our Arizona Coyotes are going into this next matchup with they actually went into this next matchup going off 3 wins. And they had an awesome 4-1 victory over the Sabres. They visited the New York Islanders. Talk about having a different upbringing. One's hunting in the desert, one's eating shrimp in Bora Bora. But they got together on the ice, and the Coyotes came out on top 2-0, extending that win streak to 4. And I mean, that's great. They're, I think, 6-6 now. They evened up the record. They're doing much better than they were last season, and they're looking good. Also, I'm pretty sure we have another update. The City Council, the Tempe City Council, voted unanimously on Thursday night to send a proposed arena and entertainment district to referendum in May. They must approve a development and disposition agreement, it's a general plan amendment, and a zoning amendment before the May 16th special election can take place. The Coyotes have been negotiating with Tempe to build on a tract of land just west of downtown Tempe, and they're trying to make it their permanent home. Hopefully that'll work. Right now they're playing in Arizona State Stadium, Mullet Arena. They only got 5,000 seats there. That's the smallest one in the NHL. So, I mean, let's hope the Coyotes can stay here. We love a good hockey team. But that's going to be all for sports and weather. We'll be back in a few.
Heading out on a Friday night, gonna hit the floor, gonna make it right. Let's go and line it up this way. 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. Slide to your left, tip down your hat, drop it down. Let's scream for the USA. Let me hear ya. Turn it up, break it down. Put your feet down on the ground.
Come see us Saturday, November 12th at Mesa Riverview Park. It's all going to be a
Your social media highlights can make the news. When you post your highlights from your favorite high school player, when your team's out there doing their thing. Hashtag HYFN TV and your highlight may be used on the next newscast. You get the photo cred right here on the morning news where everyone can follow you too. So every time you post a highlight on social media, remember to hashtag your highlights, HYFN.
Welcome back to the update on the HYFN TV network. Now, if you've enjoyed any of these segments, head to HYFNTV.com. Click on demand at the top and see just how much content is at your fingertips. We cut these sections up too, so all of our segments are accessible and you can find just the group of stories you want to rewatch and rewatch them anytime you want for free. That's what I call on demand. Now, you know, I like to keep an elevated vibe in here, but we do still have to share other information too because it might help you stay safer. Might help your family stay safer. So I feel like you need to know. So, moving on. That said, we go to Chandler, Arizona. That's where my alma mater is, Seton Catholic High School. And not far from there, actually, we used to practice tennis and play our matches even, closer to where the story takes place, Chandler Tennis Center. Shout out to you. A story we saw on ABC 15. On Thursday, police arrived on the scene around 3 p.m. to find 2 individuals with gunshot wounds, who they then transported to local hospitals with serious life-threatening injuries. The 19-year-old man of the 2 later died, and the 17-year-old woman remains in critical condition. Police did locate the 2 suspects in a nearby neighborhood where they were reportedly apprehended attempting to enter a completely separate home where Chandler police say a separate assault also occurred. Their motive is unknown as of yet. One of the suspects is Corey William Sandusky Jr., a 27-year-old who has now been booked into Maricopa County Jail for charges including aggravated assault and first-degree burglary. The other guy is being checked out for delirium, so they suspect drugs. More charges are expected. Glad the boys in blue got those guys. Now they'll sit in county. So I'd love to know your thoughts on something like this. Does it make sense to use taxpayer money for someone committing these types of crimes? And that's purely about the actions. I don't even know what these guys look like. But do you think that there are certain crimes that should mean another type of punishment? You know, one maybe where tax dollars aren't being spent? Or do you tend to think that everyone deserves rehabilitation? Is there a line? You know, maybe repeating certain types of offenses. I'll stop there because I don't want to lead that discussion in any particular direction, but I am very interested to hear your thoughts. Hashtag us at HYFNTV. I'll check out your comments, and hey, maybe we'll get to chat about a couple of what you said on the air. Now, moving on into more elevated news, we mentioned Pima County earlier, but this story has to do with the University of Arizona Wildcats and all higher education, really, in Arizona, our 3 major universities. The United States Department of Energy has awarded researchers at the U of A $3.5 million to research how climate change is affecting the most populated areas in Arizona. They're working in cooperation with Arizona State University and Northern Arizona University. So ASU, NAU, and U of A all working together. That's pretty cool to see them working together like that, you know, like they've got the same goal, huh? I wonder if that type of example could be, I don't know, valuable to study for anyone else? Huh? No names? It's a $25 million project to see how we can protect everyone here in Arizona in our most populated areas from the extreme heat. The heat is undeniable for a few months. Gorgeous the rest of the year. I love my Arizona, no doubt. But we do get 3 months of holy moly, I must go back inside before the organs fail. Just kidding. It's not that bad if you've got shelter and water, right? So a lot of things we can do to protect our fellow Arizonans. I'm glad to hear it's going on. But can you imagine being on the Phoenix streets in the middle of August, like with no cold water to drink? Wow, my goodness, prayers. Now the project is part of a bigger DOE project called the Southwest Urban Corridor Integrated Field Laboratory. Sounds fancy. So according to news.arizona.edu, the research team from all 3 universities will convene there at that new lab to study the Sun Corridor. I've actually never heard that term. Apparently it includes Prescott, Phoenix, and Tucson. The project will also study the Navajo Nation in northern Arizona and areas near the Mexican border. Wow. Nice to hear some more stories including the tribal nations today. Now, allegedly, the 3 schools will collectively be awarded $25 million over 5 years to develop the lab together. I'm not that good at math, but 25 million minus 3.5 million. That means between ASU and NAU, that's like 21 more million. So, what does doubling that down look like? I'm just kidding. But congrats to the 3 major universities. Love to hear that we're pushing the buck forward for sustainability for all my fellow Arizonans. Now, let's move on to a story that has so much more implications for so many of us watching this broadcast and for us here on the broadcast. Earlier on the update today, we got caught up on the progress with counting the votes here in Arizona, and we saw some projections on which measures will probably pass. So for all of that being said, for today's final story, I want to focus on you, our next generation thinker. We don't just do what our parents say without questioning the values behind those decisions, do we? We want to form our own opinions, we want to gain our own knowledge, come to our own conclusions, right? So when I saw this story, it hit me as a conversation starter with you all, especially given that more and more young people are getting out to vote. So how does Arizona's youth vote? What do we care about as young voters? Arizona State University did a study dubbed the Arizona Youth Identity Project, which is led by ASU professor Nilda Flores Gonzalez. And this project aims to figure out what gets young voters to vote. So the researchers asked a sample of adults, 18 to 29 years old, who voted in the last presidential election, which, as you know, had a massive turnout. Now, the first finding from the study probably won't come as a shock, but it does validate how many of us think or feel regarding our political mindsets. Flores Gonzalez said, "We found that more young adults are diverging from party positions, taking an undecided or independent stance. They actually found that a third of the study participants registered independent." That makes a lot of sense as well, right? We're coming to all our own decisions. We don't want to sit in an umbrella or labels, right? We want to be free thinking. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the bigger question here, what are the most important issues to young voters? Well, it does depend. Remember, this was right after the 2020 presidential election. So, first off, those individuals who were planning to vote for Biden cared most about climate change, dismantling systemic racism, and lowering healthcare costs. That's what got those voters out to the poll. Those who had already planned to vote for Trump cared most, according to the study. Okay, it's not me, it's all according to the study. But those who voted for Trump cared most about reducing unemployment and creating jobs, respecting religious freedoms, and combating violent crime in the United States. Now, most of the participants did share a less than confident view of government, essentially not trusting that officials have their best interests in mind. However, the majority did say they still believe voting is the most effective method in making a difference. And with that, friends, we bring another episode of The Update to a close. Now, we're obviously curious on what you guys think about all of these interesting stories. That's all I can say is interesting. stories going on. We'd love to hear what you think. Hashtag us at HYFN TV. And like always, we took a beautiful trip around the world and brought it home to the Arizona backyard, because that's just how we do. Now let's all go out there and make a difference today, and maybe even smile at a complete stranger. And amplify the amount of love that's out there. Till next time, friends, I'm Jai.
I'm Tiff.
And I'm Daniel. We'll see you next time.